Hello and welcome to Long Beach Lens. I am your host, Darick J. Simpson, Executive Director of the Long Beach Community Action Partnership. Our guest today is the President of Shades of Blue. Please welcome Captain Willie L. Daniels II. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me here and having an opportunity to speak to your community about what I do for a living and also about the organization Shades of Blue that I run.
I'm really excited to hear more because one of our PADNET members, Brother Mark, who's been a strong advocate of PADNET, but in recent year or so, he's talked more about you and what you do, and I believe you've even been here to visit us one time before, but today we get to share that with the entire viewing community. So let's start with you first. When we say captain, we're not talking military captain, we're talking about captain in the airline industry. So share that story.
That is correct. I have been with United Airlines for the last 38 and a half years.
Okay.
Grew up here in Southern California. Went to school at Mount San Antonio Community College over in Walnut when I was a commercial pilot major.
Okay.
When I came out of school there, back in 1976, I transferred over to Metropolitan State University in Denver, where I became a professional pilot major. Okay. And then after I graduated from college there, I then was fortunate enough to get hired with United Airlines about a week before I marched in commencement, but not as a pilot, but as a flight attendant.
So before we go any further, because I want to make sure that if there are young people watching, or even parents of youth in their families, there is actually a major to become an airline pilot in college. In community college, and it sounds like in a four-year institution.
That is correct. Across the nation, there are several aviation colleges and aerospace colleges in the country that if a student would be interested in pursuing a career in aviation, they can actually get a four-year degree in aviation as a professional pilot or a commercial pilot and so forth.
So so many questions just on that subject, but what's the progression, and if you were to get your degree, does that pretty much automatically assure you that one of the airlines will be looking at you as a job opportunity, or is it more like private professional pilots?
Well, if a person gets a degree in aviation, first of all, that kind of puts them on the short list with the recent requirements that the federal aviation regulations now require in order to be able to carry passengers around the world for a major 121 carrier. It's required to have a total of 1,500 hours of flying time in order to get what we call an ATP, which is an airline transport rating.
Gotcha.
And in order to get that ATP, it is each hour, for example, is cost between anywhere from $125 to about $150 an hour for an airplane, and between $35 and $50 an hour for an instructor. So we're looking at between $150 to $200 per hour to get to that level. And once an individual start out, for example, the ratings or the certificates that are required, it started out with a student pilot certificate, then it goes to a private pilot certificate, to a commercial pilot certificate, and then to an airline transport rating.
Wow, okay, so there is a progression there. Now, if I'm a young person and I'm at home watching this particular show, or the parent of a youth, as I said, what are the course curriculum that one should prepare themselves? Like if you know if you're going to be a doctor, you better study biology. So if you know you want to be a pilot, what are those subject matters that you really make sure that you're on top of?
Well, once they graduate from high school and say they go into college, if they want a career in aviation, they can go down the path where they study aviation courses, for example. They'll be covering everything from your basic ground school courses, which teach you the fundamentals of flight: thrust, lift, drag, gravity, aerodynamics, navigation, weather, airspace, communications. All of these types of things is what a student would need to know in order to become an airline transport pilot.
And two things come to mind. One, I want to make sure my pilot knows a lot about gravity, because I want to make sure we stay up. And secondly, when you talk about that course, you want to make sure you're at the top of your class rather than just a C student as a pilot. Right?
Yeah, I encourage students to learn everything about everything.
Right.
You know, if they're studying everything in aviation, for example, they learn all about aviation, but that's not the only thing that you want to learn as a professional pilot, because we're covering pretty much all over the world. You need to learn about communications, you need to learn about history, not only here in the United States, but all across the world, what the cultures are like. So learn everything you can about everything. Pick up the books, read them. I talk to students all over the country, and I tell the students what they need to do is they need to be an A student. It doesn't hurt to be an A student, because when you become a student of education and knowledge, that makes you be able to communicate just about anywhere in the world with anybody.
Now, you've mentioned all over the world a couple of times, so let's pick any month, any given month, and today for you. What's your schedule been like? What countries have you seen? What's life like?
Well, I'll go back to just say Christmas time.
Okay.
I traveled over to Brussels, over to Europe, and came back, and then I went to on the 1st of January. I went on a 7-day trip down to Japan and Guam, and I flew out in the Pacific for 7 days. Came back here. Was home for a few days. Went to Washington D.C. Came to Southern California, then went over to San Francisco yesterday, came back here today to meet up with you, and now this weekend I'm on my way out to Beijing, China.
Okay. So your passport has a lot of stamps on it, huh?
Yes. Yeah, you know, and especially like certain countries, for example, I'll throw Germany out there.
Right.
Each time you come through, they'll stamp your passport, and going through there so many times, before you know it, your passport is filled up with stamps.
I'm sure.
So they have a separate sheet that you can actually get through their customs, and every time you come through, they'll stamp it so you can save space in your passport.
As you experienced all these different cultures around the world, is there any one particular country or culture that just, when you got there, you just thought, wow, it just made this impression on you that you would say that's outstanding above all the others?
Well, actually, I find each country that I go to be unique in its own right.
Right.
You know, if
can
I go
see
to
that,
Japan, you know, they have their unique culture. If you're into the arts, or if you're into martial arts, or if you're into just the love of eating, you know, those are great countries to attend to. You go to Belgium, for example, or Germany. Those are European countries. They, you know, it's just the beauty of their countryside, the history going back hundreds and hundreds of years of their culture. So just about in my opinion, every place in the world has its own unique characteristics.
Right, right.
And it's great to see.
Right, see firsthand, and I think that's got to be amazing. And so when you think then about pilots, you were talking before the show began that you not only had your degree, but you started out as a flight attendant. Now, was that the normal course, or was that just, it happened to be what you had to do in order to become a pilot?
Well, that just happened to be what I had to do personally.
Okay.
As a pilot for United Airlines, there's roughly about 13,000 pilots, and I tell everybody each pilot has their own story on what it took in order for them to get to the level where they became an airline transport. That was my path that I took, primarily because I grew up not having a whole lot of money in my pocket, so I had to figure out ways to get the hours of flight time that I needed.
Right.
And so I would go out. I had a job working for Xerox where I was working midnight to 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was carrying 16 hours of credit and running track during the day. So I had to figure out all of these types of ways to get to the level where I got the hours, the ratings that I needed to in order to continue.
Right.
And so there's a variety of ways. And so I encourage a student or a young person that wants to become a pilot, whatever it takes, do what it takes to get those hours that's required in order to get the appropriate certificates. Because it's going to be a huge, huge opportunity coming up in the next 5-10 years. As a matter of fact, right now, today, that shortage of pilots that we had spoke about earlier has already begun.
And I would imagine, especially from a minority perspective, pilots are rare. In fact, I think I just saw in the last maybe year or so that there was 2 African-American female pilots on a particular airline, so things are really changing.
Yeah, I've actually had one of my own nieces just recently hired on with ExpressJet. So she's flying regional jets now around the country, carrying passengers, about 70, 80 passengers, and things like that. The unique opportunity, and not only for minority kids, but all the kids across the country, is in the next 10 years in the country, we're going to lose 69,000 airline pilots.
Wow.
And right now, it's about 96,000 airline transport rated pilots in the country. And we do not have enough qualified people in the country to fill the positions that are being vacated.
Wow.
So this is a golden opportunity for a young kid to get into this industry. And at the same time, if they start out at 13, 14, 15 years of age, and by the time they graduate from high school, go to 4 years of college, they come out with enough flight time experience to have an ATP, they can hire on with the airline at 23 years of age. This gives them the potential of earning 6 figures for 40 plus years.
Wow. And that's right, perfect timing, like you said. If you start now, right about the time that vacuum will be there, they can just step right in.
And that's just here in the United States. Now, if you extrapolate that out across the country, across the world,
Right.
The projections, and these are not my numbers, these are actually Boeing, the Boeing Aircraft Corporation and Aerospace Corporation's numbers. We're going to need about 565,000 people worldwide.
Wow.
You know,
That's
to
a
fly
tremendous
airplanes.
jump. Yes. Now, we're going to be going to a break in just a moment. And when we come back from that break, we're going to talk about Shades of Blue Ink, which I would imagine was passion of yours just because of this gap that we're talking about. So we're going to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to hear more about that and hear more about your story. I'm fascinated just sitting here listening to you and being one that enjoys travel, although for work it's not as much fun as seeing the world as you are. But thank you for that personal story. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will continue our conversation with Captain Willie L. Daniels II. Stay tuned for more of Long Beach Lens.
Thank you.
It's very pet friendly. Everybody has a dog in Long Beach. It's Dog City.
Well, there's everything to do here. You got the Pike, you got Queen Mary, you got the beaches, you got paddle boarding, surfing. You go half a mile that way, you got surfing, you got downtown.
I just think it's the most incredible, most beautiful, most unique city, which has so much to offer. So I love it here and I'll never leave.
Hi, my name is Ingrid Archie, and thanks to Prop 47, I was given a second chance at life. Prop 47 is a California law passed by an overwhelming majority of voters in 2014. This law allows us to reclaim our lives by changing felony convictions for lower-level nonviolent crimes to misdemeanors. In fact, I am one of over 650,000 people estimated to be eligible for this felony reduction. Prop 47 can help you change your record and remove barriers to employment, housing, and college loans. Look, we all make mistakes, but not every punishment fits the crime. I was given a new opportunity, so now I'm giving back by helping others get a second chance too. But you need to take the initiative because the clock is ticking and the window closes in November 2017. So don't wait. Remove the barriers, change your record now. If you or anyone you know could benefit from Prop 47, share this. Together we can rebuild our communities.
Hey, I'm going to give you a few study tips if you are one of those people who find it hard to study. Tip 1, find or go to a place where you can relax and focus. Tip 2, start by studying the most important information. Tip 3, read and understand sentences one at a time. Tip 4, form a study group and make sure that they are also serious about their work. Tip 5, write on some flashcards and try to memorize them one by one. And now you know.
Welcome back. I'm Darick J. Simpson, and we are here with Captain Willie L. Daniels II, president of Shades of Blue, and we were talking about your story and how you evolved as a pilot and how you even got into that. But Shades of Blue is really what we want to focus on. What is Shades of Blue?
Well, Shades of Blue is an aviation aerospace foundation that I founded about 17 years ago,
Okay.
With the idea of taking airline pilots alongside of engineers and scientists from our working environment into the classrooms across the nation to make it relevant why the students are learning what they're learning, and also help aid education to help give these students an idea, hey, here's a career path you may not know about. But not only that, we created a pipeline where we get the kids in at an early age, we mentor them, we point them in the right direction, we track them all the way through college, and when they come out, we run their resumes right into the HR department.
So is it like a curriculum that you've created, or is it just mentoring? Give us an example. Like if I'm a school, how do I engage you, and then what is required of us to keep Shades of Blue?
Yeah, we do a combination of mentoring. I work with superintendents across the country.
Okay.
I found quickly, because I started the organization in Colorado, and I started working by going into one school at a time, one classroom at a time, and I quickly realized after about a year or so, there's about 1,700 schools up and down the Front Range of Colorado.
Right.
And so it made it very difficult to get to all of those 1,700 schools.
Right.
So I decided to go a different route, so I started approaching superintendents of school districts.
Gotcha.
And so we started doing a 9-week aviation course with the superintendents of, for example, a former superintendent of Aurora Public Schools. They had about 8 or 9 schools that they in turn sent communiques out to all of those different schools in their district and say, if you want to be a part of this program, you need to sign your students up as a Shades of Blue member, because this is a joint venture between me and the school district and Shades of Blue.
Right.
And they came out, and all of the students from all of these different schools came into one location, and we could do a mass introduction to aviation.
Okay.
After a couple of years of doing that, then we branched it out into engineering. And then as schools and school districts started hearing about this, more and more people started to contact me and say, hey, how can we get this into our school district for our kids?
Right.
And the unique thing about it is, I mentioned earlier that we're going to need about 69,000 airline pilots. Well, right now today, we're short over 2 million engineers in the country. So here is a golden opportunity to get these young people at an early age in the pipeline.
Okay.
And I always like to use the Tiger Woods analogy. His father started him out at 3 years of age, and by the time he was 20 years of age, he was a world champion. So if these students start out early enough and they get the right skills, they study hard, get good grades, and I always emphasize be an A student. You know, the difference between being a C student and an A student, in my opinion, is 30 minutes a day. And then when the students go home in the evening time, all they have to do is pick up their notes and review everything that they learned today. That reinforces it on their mind, and then they can regurgitate that and be able to, the next time they take a test, answer those questions very easily.
So being selfish here in Long Beach, is it an opportunity for us to meet with our superintendent here? Is it in Long Beach, first of all?
Well,
Maybe it
actually,
already is.
we're coming to Long Beach very,
Okay.
very quickly. As a matter of fact, I have actually had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Chris Steinhauser
Okay.
and Dr. Felton Williams, who
Great,
is
great.
the president of the
the
Long
board.
Beach School Board and
Right.
also the president of the Council for the Great City Schools.
Okay.
And we've been in numerous conversations. We've already started a chapter of Shades of Blue here in California.
Okay.
And we're now looking to branch it out here because California is such a huge area. Maybe set up a numerous amount of chapters. We are currently going into the Apple Valley, Rialto area, and now we're coming out here to the Long Beach, Los Angeles area, and to be able to expose the students to all of these opportunities. You have a whole wealth of information right here in your own backyard.
Now you say chapter, so what does it take? If I'm someone in the community and I want to be a part of making Shades of Blue a reality in our community, what does it take to start a chapter? Is it just school district personnel, or is it?
No, what we need is dedicated individuals who are concerned about the direction of our kids and our youth. And then we have to have boots on the ground in a local area. Right now I have about 6 chapters going in the United States. We started in Colorado, and in 2014 we expanded to California, Nevada, Illinois, Georgia, and now we're in the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area.
Okay.
But I have individuals who had experience in aviation, such as retired pilots and captains. I have retired scientists from NASA and so forth who are heading up these different chapters. And so we put together a dedicated pool of individuals in those areas that could help that individual kind of run the chapters. And by doing that, now we have a base where we can grow and help provide the opportunities to the students all over your school district, all over your whole entire community.
Now, when you talk about cost, is there a cost associated that the community needs to be aware of to make this chapter occur?
There are costs. One of the things that we've done in terms of the community and students involved is there's no cost to the students to be a member of Shades of Blue and to get them in our pipeline. So it makes it very easy for them to become associated with our organization. But it's very difficult for a nonprofit organization, 501c3 Corp, to continue to exist without community support, corporate support, grants, and so forth. So all of those types of things are helpful.
Now, we just showed the book here, and then you also were kind enough to share a patch with me that you presented. What's the story of the patch?
Well, each year Shades of Blue hosts an annual event honoring heroes and so forth in the country. Last October, this significant patch was Shades of Blue Honors America's Heroes. Right. And we selected 2 individuals for the Ed DeWhite Jr. Award, which is our most prestigious award that we give out. Miss Katherine Johnson, who was recently part of Hidden Figures.
Right, and, which is an amazing movie, by the way, yes. Yes,
she's currently 98 years of age.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to be invited by the family of Miss Johnson and also NASA back to Hamden back to Hamden, Virginia. And NASA had hosted the special screening with Miss Johnson in attendance.
Now, for those who may not know, of the characters in the movie, which one was she?
She played the role as the main individual who did all the math in her head. That's the unique thing about it. And I encourage every American, if they haven't seen that movie, go see it. Right. Because it shows what those folks had endured at the time and what they overcame. Right. But if it hadn't been for their contributions, we may not have succeeded in our space program.
And you know what amazed me about the movie was they had a room called computers. That's the label that were on the individual. So in my head, it was like, okay, so the term we use today as computers, those were actually people in a room that computed numbers, and that's where the term came from.
They actually gave them the term, you are a computer.
Right.
And so if a specific department needed some help in math, they say, hey, can you order up a computer for us? Right. And that computer just so happened to be an African-American female computer who they brought in to help work. And they actually started, Miss Dorothy Vaughn started back there prior to NASA even being formed back in 1953. And then the Eisenhower is the one that President Eisenhower is the one that actually formed the group. And they started working with NASA in the late 50s, early 60s towards the space program. And at the very end of that movie, you'll see where astronaut John Glenn was not going to fly his mission until he got her numbers, because IBM was just coming on board. Right. But they were giving out some confusing numbers to them. And so they used Miss Johnson to confirm those numbers before he would actually fly his flight.
As you said, that movie really resonated with me. I'm from Mobile, Alabama, so Huntsville is where a lot of NASA is. But also the mainframe wouldn't go through the door in the movie.
Correct.
And when I moved to California, I worked with IBM 3274 controller installations, and the mainframe center core area was as large as a football field.
Yeah,
how technology has evolved to
Yeah,
today.
that's what's really interesting is Miss Johnson did all the math in her head.
Right, that an IBM computer was needed to do.
Then IBM started up, but the engineers at that time were using slide rules to do their calculations.
Right.
She did the math in her head and helped create all of the math that actually got us to the moon and all of the space shuttle.
Yeah.
And worked on the Gemini missions to
amazing
do that.
Woman. We only have almost coming up on a minute. What's the final thought that you want to leave with people about Shades of Blue? What's the one thing you want people to know?
What I would like to do is if they would like to find out more information, they can go to our website.
Okay.
It's www.shadesofblue.org.
Okay.
They can find out more details. We have a whole lot of history going back to the beginning when Shades of Blue started. They can see the past events. They can go and see the upcoming events. They can see our interaction with the students in the schools and the whole works. It's actually so much information it can be overwhelming when you dive off into our website.
I'm sure. Well, you're just a walking history book too. I'm very proud to have this opportunity to interview you, to learn more about you, and just congratulate you on your career.
Thank you.
But also on what you're doing to ensure that there's a legacy for others to follow. So kudos to you, and best wishes for safe travels around the globe.
We appreciate
as
that.
you continue to do your travels in the future. I'd like to thank Captain Willie O. Daniels II for joining us. An amazing man, an amazing American on our show today. Just made Long Beach Lens a very special show for us. Be sure to follow PADNET TV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest updates. We also welcome your comments and thoughts regarding the show as we strive to make Long Beach Lens a favorite source of local news, information, and entertainment. This show has been brought to you with support from the Long Beach Community Action Partnership. Thank you again for watching Long Beach Lens.